Welcome to Starbound Valor HFY. Subscribe now and dive into daily epic sci-fi adventures where humanity always rises. The Galactic Council Hall was silent for a moment, and then it filled with laughter. Hundreds of alien leaders sat on floating seats, their glowing eyes fixed on the small figure standing in the center. He was a human. Short, rough, and dressed in animal skin. His hair was long and messy, his hands hard like stone. To them, he looked like a caveman pulled from an old memory of a weak world. They had seen many species rise and fall, but this one looked like a joke. The human's name was Kale, but no one in the hall cared to remember it. To the council, he was only a test subject. Humans, as a species, were labeled primitive. They had fire, sharp stones, and simple shelters. No faster-than-light travel. No energy shields. No galactic language. The council had voted many times about what to do with Earth. Some wanted to ignore it. Some wanted to remove it before humans became a problem. In the end, boredom won. They decided to experiment. One skill. Just one. They wanted to see how a low species would react. It was harmless fun to them. After all, what could one skill change? Kale stood quietly while machines scanned his body and mind. He did not understand the alien words, but he understood their tone. They looked down on him. He felt it. He had felt that look before, from stronger humans in his own tribe. Fear mixed with anger inside him, but he did not show it. Kale had survived harsh winters, wild beasts, and hunger. He had learned one thing in life already, even before the aliens. Survive first. Ask questions later. The council leader floated forward. Its voice echoed through the hall, calm and cold. "We will teach the human one basic concept," it said. Problem-solving. Observation. Cause and effect. Some aliens laughed again. Others watched with mild interest. To them, these ideas were simple, almost childish. Their machines solved problems faster than thought. Teaching this to a human felt like giving fire to a stone. Light surrounded Kale's head. Images, patterns, and signals rushed into his mind. He fell to his knees, gripping the floor. Pain burned through his skull. His breath became heavy. The aliens thought he might break. Some even hoped he would. But Kale did not scream. He clenched his teeth and endured. His brain struggled, but it did not reject the knowledge. It grabbed it. Inside Kale's mind, something changed. He began to see the world differently. Not just as danger or safety, but as systems. If this happens, then that happens. If a tool breaks, why did it break? If a hunt fails, what went wrong? The thoughts were simple, but they connected. For the first time, Kale did not just react to the world. He began to understand it. The light faded. Kale collapsed, breathing hard. The council waited. A few seconds passed. Then Kale slowly stood up. His eyes moved across the hall. He looked at the floating seats, the glowing screens, the strange machines. He did not understand what they were, but he understood that they were made with purpose. Nothing here was random. That thought alone made several alien observers pause. "Test complete," the council leader said. "Return the human to his world." There was no concern in its voice. To them, the experiment was already over. Kale was escorted back to a transport chamber. As the doors closed, he turned his head and looked back at the council. His face showed no fear, only focus. Back on Earth, Kale returned to his tribe. They lived near a forest and a cold river. Life was hard. Food was never enough. Tools broke often. Before, Kale accepted these things as fate. Now he did not. When a spear snapped during a hunt, Kale did not throw it away. He studied the broken point. He saw where it failed. That night, he changed the shape. The next hunt, the spear did not break. Days passed. Then weeks. Kale watched everything. Fire, water, stone. He noticed patterns. He taught others what he saw. Not with words, but with actions. The tribe began to copy him. Traps became better. Shelters became stronger. Fewer people died in winter. It was slow, but it was real. Far above Earth, alien observers watched through hidden sensors. At first, they saw nothing special. Then they noticed small changes. Tool use increased. Mistakes decreased. Learning speed went up. One observer frowned. "He is applying the concept," it said. Another replied, "So what? It is still primitive." But doubt had entered the room. Kale did not know he was being watched. He only knew that thinking before acting saved lives. When a flood destroyed part of the camp, he moved the shelters higher. When animals avoided old traps, he changed them. Every failure became a lesson. Every lesson became shared knowledge. The tribe no longer relied on one strong hunter. They relied on ideas. The council reviewed the data again. Charts showed something unusual. Human progress was not linear. It was rising faster. "Impossible," one council member said. "We gave them one skill." The leader stayed silent, its eyes fixed on the numbers. It had seen many species before. Most took thousands of cycles to change. Humans were doing it in moments. On Earth, Kale sat by the fire, staring into the flames. He placed stones around it, testing how heat moved. He smiled slightly, a rare expression for him. The fire burned brighter, safer. In the sky above him, stars watched in silence. The galaxy did not yet understand what it had done. Far away, in the cold halls of the Galactic Council, a quiet realization began to form. They had not taught the human how to build machines or fly ships. They had taught him how to think. And thinking, once started, did not stop. The experiment they laughed at was no longer harmless. It was only the beginning. Kale woke before sunrise, his mind already working. The cold air bit his skin, but he barely noticed. His thoughts moved faster than before, connecting ideas without effort. The tribe still slept, curled near weak fires, unaware that something inside one of them had changed forever. Kale picked up a stone tool and turned it in his hands. Before, it was just a tool. Now, it was a question. Why this shape? Why this stone? Could it be better? These thoughts did not scare him. They felt natural. During the morning hunt, Kale watched closely. When an animal escaped, he did not curse or accept failure. He replayed the moment in his mind. The angle was wrong. The timing was slow. The spear was heavy at the back. That night, he adjusted it again, balancing it with care. The next day, the hunt succeeded. The tribe ate well, and for the first time, they noticed something different. It was not luck. It was Kale. Far above the planet, alien observers increased their focus. Screens showed Kale's actions in detail. One alien leaned closer. "He is not repeating behavior," it said. "He is improving it." Another observer replied calmly, "That is what the concept does." But there was tension now. This was not expected speed. Humans were supposed to struggle longer. Kale began to teach without meaning to teach. When others asked how he made better tools, he showed them. When they failed, he did not mock them. He made them try again. Slowly, the tribe changed. Children learned faster. Elders listened instead of ordering. Ideas moved from one mind to another like fire spreading through dry grass. No single human owned the knowledge. That made it powerful. The aliens noticed something else. Humans did not wait for instructions. They experimented. One observer pointed at the screen. "They are testing different outcomes on purpose." Another went silent. Alien species usually followed set paths. Humans were exploring many at once. It was messy, inefficient, and yet effective. The data curves continued to rise. Kale faced his first true failure when a new shelter design collapsed during a storm. One human was injured. The tribe was angry. In the past, Kale might have been punished or ignored. Instead, he gathered them. He showed where the support failed. He admitted the mistake. Then he fixed it. The next shelter stood firm. Trust replaced anger. Failure lost its power over them. In the council chamber, concern began to spread. They learn from failure instead of fearing it, one member said. That is dangerous. Another replied, all species learn. The council leader finally spoke. Not like this. The leader understood the threat now. A species that did not stop after loss could not be controlled easily. Kale's mind moved beyond tools. He studied animals, weather, and seasons. He noticed patterns in migration and rain. He planned hunts days ahead. Food storage improved. Hunger became less common. With survival more secure, humans had time. Time to think. Time to talk. Time to imagine. That was the moment the aliens truly feared, though they did not yet admit it. Alien machines tried to predict human progress. The simulations failed. Too many variables. Too much change. Humans did not follow clean logic paths. They mixed emotion with reason. Fear with hope. The machines could not calculate that. An observer whispered, "They are not optimized." Another answered quietly, "They do not need to be." Kale stood one night under the stars, watching lights move across the sky. He did not know they were alien sensors, but he knew he was not alone. The world felt bigger now, full of hidden rules waiting to be understood. He picked up a stick and drew shapes in the dirt, showing others how lines could represent plans. Simple drawings became shared memory. Knowledge no longer died with one human. The council debated intervention. Some argued to stop watching. Others suggested removing Kale. The leader raised a limb. "It is too late," it said. "The skill has spread. Killing one human would change nothing." The idea was alive now, moving from mind to mind. On Earth, the tribe defended itself better against predators. They used formations. They communicated silently. No single human had been taught war, yet strategy appeared. It emerged naturally from problem-solving and shared experience. The aliens marked it as a warning sign. Humans were building something without knowing its final shape. Kale aged slowly, but his influence grew fast. He no longer needed to lead every action. Others improved on his ideas. Some ideas were better than his. He accepted that. In fact, he welcomed it. Progress was no longer about him. That truth made humanity stronger. The council leader reviewed the original decision log. One skill. Minimal risk. The data now showed rising intelligence curves, social bonding strength, and adaptive behavior. The leader felt something rare among its kind. Regret. "We underestimated them," it said. Silence followed. As the sun rose over Earth, Kale watched children play with small tools, testing them, breaking them, fixing them. He smiled again. He did not know the word for it, but this was the future. Above him, the galaxy watched in growing fear. Humans had been given one skill. They were using it to learn everything else. The changes on Earth were no longer small. What began with better tools and smarter hunts slowly turned into something deeper. Humans were not just surviving anymore. They were planning. Kale watched his people from a distance now, not as a leader who commanded, but as a mind that observed. He noticed how ideas moved faster than bodies. A good idea, once shown, spread through the tribe in days. That speed worried the watchers in the sky. The alien observation network increased its power. More sensors. More scans. The machines tracked human behavior in detail, measuring decision time, error rates, and cooperation levels. The numbers were clear. Humans were learning faster than expected. One alien analyst spoke in disbelief. Their biological limits should slow them. Another replied, "They are ignoring limits." The council leader said nothing, but its attention never left the rising graphs. Kale found a broken piece of alien metal near the river one morning. It had fallen from a small observer drone damaged by weather. To Kale, it was just a strange stone that did not crack. He tested it with fire. It did not melt. He struck it with other rocks. It bent slightly, then returned to shape. Kale did not know the word technology, but he understood function. This thing was different. He carried the metal back to the tribe. Others gathered around. Kale did not claim it as his own. He let everyone touch it, test it, question it. One human tried to sharpen it. Another tried to tie it to wood. The first attempts failed. Instead of giving up, they tried again. Each failure taught them something new. The observers above marked the moment. Humans were interacting with alien material. The council chamber filled with tension. They should not understand that object, one member said. It is not meant for them. The leader replied calmly, they do not understand it. They are learning it. That difference mattered. Kale realized the metal worked best when shaped thin. He changed his tool designs. Cutting became easier. Work became faster. With better tools, humans built more shelters in less time. That freed hours in the day. Free hours turned into thinking hours. Thinking hours turned into innovation. The cycle fed itself. Children learned by watching adults experiment. They did not wait to be taught. They copied, then changed things in small ways. Some changes failed. Some worked. The tribe began to value curiosity. Questions were no longer signs of weakness. They were tools. Alien prediction models collapsed again. The machines could not simulate curiosity. One observer shut down its screen in frustration. They are creating new paths, it said. Paths we did not design. Another answered, that is what makes them dangerous. Kale noticed something else. Humans worked better together when they shared ideas openly. No single person held all answers. Groups solved problems faster. He encouraged discussion through action, showing that no idea was final. The tribe became flexible. If one plan failed, another replaced it. Rigidity disappeared. Above Earth, the council argued. Some wanted to end observation. Others wanted to intervene. The leader reviewed long-term data. Every intervention in history had failed against adaptive species. Humans were becoming adaptive at a frightening speed. Intervention will only accelerate them, the leader said. Silence followed. Kale experimented with fire and metal together. He did not know he was close to the edge of something important. He only knew that heat changed materials. The first attempts ruined the metal. Instead of stopping, he changed the fire, the time, the shape. Eventually, the metal softened just enough. He shaped it. The first improved blade was born. The alien observers reacted immediately. Alarms flashed. They are modifying off-world material, one shouted. Another whispered, they are reverse learning. The council leader's eyes dimmed slightly. This was no longer curiosity. This was progress. Humans began to trade ideas between nearby tribes. Kale traveled, showing others what worked and what did not. In return, he learned new methods. Knowledge crossed distances faster than bodies again. A network formed, invisible but strong. The aliens saw it as an early information system. One observer ran a comparison. Humans were outperforming some early-stage machine civilizations from the Council's records. That should have been impossible. Machines were logical. Humans were emotional. Yet emotion pushed them forward instead of holding them back. Pride, fear, hope, and care for others created energy that logic alone could not. Kale aged, but he did not slow down. Younger humans took his ideas and pushed them further. He watched with approval. The skill he had learned was no longer his. It belonged to humanity. That was its true strength. The council leader finally spoke to the full chamber. We taught them one thing, it said. How to think about problems. It paused. They are teaching themselves everything else. Some members demanded action. Others feared consequences. No decision was made. On Earth, humans built tools that lasted longer and worked better. Injuries dropped. Lifespans increased slightly. With longer lives came memory. With memory came history. Stories began to carry lessons. Culture formed around improvement. Kale sat near the river again, watching the water move around stones. He saw patterns in the flow, ideas forming in his mind. The galaxy had thought humans were slow and simple. It was wrong. Humans were fast learners. And they were just beginning. The first true shock to the galaxy did not come from a weapon or a ship. It came from organization. On Earth, human tribes that once lived apart now shared plans, tools, and warnings. Kale watched this change with quiet focus. He had helped start it, but it no longer needed him. Ideas moved faster than messengers. Signals made with smoke, marks on stone, and shared paths carried knowledge across land. The aliens above saw something new forming, something they had hoped humans would never reach. Alien observation stations began to fail one by one. Not from attack, but from detection. Humans noticed strange patterns in the sky, repeating lights that did not match stars. Kale did not know their origin, but he knew patterns meant intent. He warned others. They adjusted travel routes and camp locations. Alien sensors found less data, not more. This was the first time humans reacted to the Watchers without knowing who they were. The council chamber filled with uneasy voices. "They are avoiding our observation," one member said. Another replied, "They should not even know we exist." The council leader raised its gaze. "They do not need to know us," it said. "They only need to notice patterns." That truth silenced the room. Kale focused on stability. Better food storage. Stronger shelters. He believed security created space for thinking. Humans built raised floors to avoid floods. They lined fires with stone to control heat. Small changes, but together they created safety. With safety came confidence. With confidence came ambition. Humans began shaping metal more carefully. The strange alien alloy was rare, but stone and bone tools improved using the same methods. Heat, pressure, testing. Each improvement reduced effort and increased output. The aliens marked it as technological acceleration. Still slow by galactic standards, but fast for a species that had been labeled primitive. One alien analyst noticed something disturbing. "They are designing tools for people they have never met," it said. "They plan for future users." That concept was rare even among advanced species. Planning beyond the present moment required trust in the future. Humans had it. Kale gathered younger humans and showed them how to test ideas safely. Try small changes first. Watch results. Keep what works. Remove what fails. He did not give orders. He gave methods. That made the knowledge flexible. When Kale was not there, the thinking continued. The first organized human defense emerged without a word for war. When large predators threatened camps, humans formed roles. Some distracted. Some attacked. Some protected the weak. No single human commanded. The plan changed as the situation changed. Alien observers flagged it as adaptive combat behavior. That word echoed in the council chamber. "We must stop this," one council member said. "They are becoming unpredictable." Another argued, "Stopping them will require force." The leader considered this. Force had always failed against adaptive species. "Force teaches," the leader said. And they learned too fast. The galaxy experienced its first human impact when a small alien probe crashed near a human settlement. Unlike before, humans did not fear it. They surrounded it, studied it, and took it apart piece by piece. No single human understood it fully, but together they learned enough. The probe never reported back. For the first time, the galaxy lost an eye. The council went silent. Data feeds vanished. Models showed rising risk. Humans were no longer isolated. They were interacting with the galaxy, even without knowing it. That was the shock. A species had crossed a boundary without permission. Kale watched the dismantled probe with care. He did not touch every part. He let others do that. He asked questions instead. Why did this part move? Why did that part glow? Answers were guesses, but guesses led to tests. Tests led to understanding. Understanding led to new questions. Alien leaders argued late into their cycles. Some blamed the original decision. Others blamed human nature. The leader took responsibility. We underestimated a species that learns socially, it said. That was our error. Humans began to store knowledge outside their minds. Marks on stone became records. Shapes meant instructions. Even if one human died, the idea lived on. The observers saw it as external memory. Civilization had begun. Kale noticed humans thinking beyond survival. They talked about tomorrow, next season, and next year. They planned hunts far ahead. They saved resources. The concept of future took root. That was when the Council's fear became certainty. The first galactic law review was called Because of Earth. A primitive world had disrupted observation protocols. That had never happened before. They have not even reached orbit, one member said. And yet they affect us. The leader answered, because progress is not measured only by distance. On Earth, Kale stood on a hill, watching smoke signals rise in the distance, carrying warnings and ideas. He felt no pride, only focus. He knew this was only another problem to solve. Above him, the stars seemed closer now, not because humans had reached them, but because the galaxy had begun to notice humanity. The shock had passed its first wave. The galaxy would never see humans as harmless again. And humans, still unaware of the Council's fear, continued to learn, adapt, and move forward. Fear entered the galaxy quietly, not with alarms but with reports. The Council received data from multiple sectors, all pointing to the same source: Earth. A species once ignored now appeared in strategic simulations. Kale did not know this, but his actions had started something much larger. Humans were no longer reacting only to their world. They were shaping it with intent, and intent was dangerous when combined with learning. On Earth, humans began to notice that some problems repeated across different lands. Floods, predators, cold seasons, and sickness returned again and again. Instead of treating each event as new, they began to plan systems. Drain paths were carved to guide water. Storage pits were shared between groups. Simple rules spread: protect the young, save food, watch the sky. These rules were not forced. They were accepted because they worked. Alien observers marked this as social optimization. Kale moved less now, letting others take his place in travel and teaching. He watched from the edges, studying how ideas changed once they left him. Some became better. Some became dangerous. When a new trap injured a human by mistake, Kale helped adjust the design and shared the lesson widely. Mistakes became warnings instead of secrets. That openness made humans resilient. The Council debated response options. One faction argued for isolation. Block Earth from the rest of the galaxy. Another argued for removal. End the threat before it grew. The leader listened to both, then asked a simple question. What happens when you threaten a species that adapts? No one answered. They all knew the history. Threat created pressure. Pressure created evolution. Alien intelligence networks tried to map human psychology. The results confused them. Humans feared death but risked it. They cared for individuals but sacrificed for groups. They fought but also forgave. These contradictions made prediction difficult. One analyst summarized it simply: they are not consistent. The leader replied, they are context-based. That made them worse. On Earth, the first long-distance human meeting took place. Groups gathered to share knowledge, not for war but for survival. Kale watched younger humans speak ideas he had never considered. Weather patterns, animal behavior cycles, tool-sharing agreements. Humans were no longer a single tribe. They were becoming a network. Networks scaled. Alien probes tried to hide better. Humans still noticed changes. Shadows in the sky. Strange metal traces. Kale advised caution. Do not attack what you do not understand. Observe first. That advice saved lives and also slowed escalation. The aliens misread this as weakness. It was not. The Council received a critical report. Human learning speed had increased again. The cause was collaboration. Shared problem-solving reduced individual limits. They are distributing intelligence, one member said. No single failure stops them. That was when the word fear was spoken openly in the chamber. Kale sensed tension without knowing its source. Dreams of falling stars and burning skies disturbed his sleep. He shared these fears, and humans began planning for unknown threats. They built shelters deeper into hills. They stored water. They practiced moving camps quickly. Preparedness became culture. The aliens saw it as pre-war behavior. Humans saw it as survival. A secret council vote was called. Option 3 was approved for study. Preemptive strike. Remove key humans. Disrupt learning centers. The leader did not approve it yet, but the fact it was discussed marked a turning point. The galaxy was afraid of a species that still used stone tools. On Earth, Kale nearly died when a hunting accident went wrong. He survived because others applied his methods. Assess, adapt, respond. As he healed, he realized something important. Humanity no longer depended on him. That thought brought peace and concern at the same time. If he was gone, progress would continue. The aliens understood this too. Removing Kale would change nothing. Human stories began to change. They no longer spoke only of the past. They spoke of futures. Children were taught not just how to use tools, but how to improve them. Questions were encouraged. Why is this so? What if we try this? That mindset spread faster than any tool. The council leader reviewed a final projection. In several future paths, humans reached space. In many of those paths, conflict followed first contact. In a few, cooperation emerged. The deciding factor was fear. If the galaxy acted in fear, humans responded with strength. If the galaxy showed restraint, humans showed curiosity. Fear is a powerful teacher, the leader thought. And humans were excellent students. Kale stood near the river again, older now, watching water cut through stone over time. He understood that change did not need speed to be unstoppable. It needed direction. Humans had direction now. Above Earth, alien fleets did not move, but their attention was fixed. The galaxy feared humanity not because of what humans were, but because of what they were becoming. Humans did not wait for the galaxy to act. They did not build fleets or forge weapons immediately. Instead, they learned. Kale watched quietly as small groups began to test ideas beyond survival. They studied wind and water, fire and stone. Each experiment was careful, measured, and shared. No one person could hold all knowledge, so it moved like a river, flowing from mind to mind. That was the power humans had discovered, learning together faster than any alien machine could predict. The observers above took notice. Their calculations failed again. Humans were unpredictable. When the first threat appeared, it was subtle. An alien scout ship hovered near the human settlements. It was not attacking, but humans recognized danger in patterns. Kale and the tribe had learned to observe before reacting. They did not panic. They did not hide. Instead, they studied the ship, noticing its movement, the sound of its engines, the reflection of the sun on its metal surface. They shared what they observed. Each piece of information was passed along to others. When the ship moved closer, humans were ready. They did not fire weapons. They blocked paths and set traps that made the ship change course. It left without a single human harmed. Above, alien observers were shocked. Humans had reacted without fighting. Yet their action had forced compliance. Kale encouraged humans to notice more than what was in front of them. Patterns of stars, wind, and animals all contained lessons. Humans began to predict events with accuracy. A flood did not destroy the village. Humans had already moved stores of food to higher ground. A wild animal threatened a group. Humans used distractions and coordinated action to divert it. It was not brute strength but strategy that protected them. Alien analysts noted that this behavior was not taught. It had emerged naturally from problem-solving skills and cooperation. Humans experimented with communication. Signals of smoke, reflective stones, and sound patterns evolved into codes. When danger approached, they could warn distant camps without being noticed. Alien observers tried to intercept signals, but the codes were simple enough for humans to improvise and change in seconds. Kale watched children pass messages to each other and smiled. The youngest ones already adapted the methods without instruction. Learning was no longer slow. It was explosive. Above Earth, the Council realized the threat humans posed could not be ignored. Calculations showed humans responding to situations faster than any previous species had. "They are too adaptable," one council member said. Another added, "They do not follow predictable patterns." The leader remained calm but silent. In history, predictability had allowed control. Humans had none. That alone created fear. Kale's influence shifted from direct leadership to guidance. He taught humans how to analyze problems rather than giving solutions. He encouraged questions and experiments. The tribe applied the lessons themselves. When a trap failed, they redesigned it. When a shelter collapsed, they reinforced it. When sickness struck, they observed, tried remedies, and shared knowledge. Each success and failure multiplied understanding across the population. Humans were learning faster than anyone had anticipated. The first small-scale conflict with aliens occurred when a scout ship tried to claim resources near human settlements. Humans reacted instinctively, using strategy instead of attack. They led the ship into natural hazards, avoiding direct confrontation. It damaged the ship enough to force retreat. Kale and the elders analyzed the encounter. The lesson was clear: fight indirectly, adapt, and survive. Humans shared the tactics quickly. By the time the next scout approached, humans had already predicted several possible outcomes and prepared responses. The aliens began to notice patterns, but they were unpredictable because humans did not rely on repetition alone. The council argued about intervention. Preemptive strikes were discussed, but the leader reminded them of history. Adaptive species learned from force. Force would accelerate human progress. The aliens realized that humans responded not only to danger but to challenges. Challenges were fuel for their growth. The council became divided. Some feared acting at all. Some argued for containment, yet they lacked the tools to enforce it. Humans were already learning faster than any containment plan could be implemented. On Earth, humans did not build weapons of mass destruction. They built ideas. Knowledge became their shield. Kale noticed how young ones experimented with simple mechanical principles. They built pulleys, traps, and levers. They tested variations. Some failed. Some succeeded. Each successful idea spread. Humans began teaching each other techniques for prediction, observation, and planning. The alien species above could not understand this. Strategy, improvisation, and adaptation were not linear. Humans were creating systems that grew faster than calculation allowed. Kale observed that humans were beginning to act in unison without formal orders. When danger approached, they coordinated using signals and movement. Not every human understood the plan completely, but the group achieved results collectively. The aliens marked this as emergent intelligence in social behavior. They had underestimated humans. Individual weakness was replaced by collective strength. That was the moment humans stopped being predictable prey and became an unpredictable force. The first attempts at direct alien engagement ended with humans adapting in real time. Ships that should have overwhelmed them retreated because humans had anticipated traps and alternative strategies. Kale's tribe taught surrounding groups what they learned. Knowledge spread like wildfire. Each interaction made humans stronger, faster, and more clever. The council watched simulations crumble. Predictions failed. Every attempt to control outcomes resulted in humans improvising solutions. Fear began to settle in the council halls. Kale, older now, still worked among the people but no longer needed to guide every action. He observed how humans had internalized the skill he learned from the aliens. They questioned, experimented, adapted, and collaborated. They were no longer just surviving. They were thriving in ways the aliens could not measure. Humans had discovered the power of strategy without knowing the word. They had discovered the strength of collective intelligence. The first real test of human ingenuity came when an alien fleet attempted to survey multiple human settlements simultaneously. Humans reacted not with fear, but with coordination. They set false trails, misled sensors, and adapted their defenses dynamically. Ships could not predict human movement. Kale's teachings multiplied exponentially across tribes. Humans had turned problem-solving into a shield and strategy into a weapon without striking a blow. The Council was forced to admit, quietly, that humans were now more dangerous than they had ever imagined. Humans had learned the most important lesson: they did not need to fight blindly. They only needed to think, adapt, and act together. And the galaxy was only beginning to notice. Kale had grown older, his hair streaked with gray, and his hands rougher than ever, yet his mind remained sharp. He no longer needed to lead every action. His role had shifted from instructor to observer, watching how humans applied the skill he had learned. Across the forests and plains, humans moved with purpose and coordination that had once been unimaginable. They hunted, built, and survived not just as individuals, but as networks of minds sharing knowledge and lessons. Kale felt a quiet pride, though he did not fully understand it. He had not intended to create a legend, but that was exactly what he had become. Humans now respected him, not because he commanded, but because he had unlocked a way of thinking that transformed them all. The first real test of human coordination came when disaster struck. A massive flood swept through the river valleys where many tribes lived. Humans had seen patterns before. They knew the river swelled after heavy rains and that storms could move faster than expected. Yet nothing had prepared them for the sheer scale of this flood. Kale watched as humans moved quickly, reinforcing shelters and transporting food to higher ground. Children, adults, and elders all played roles, communicating with smoke signals, shouting, or tapping stones in rhythmic patterns that carried messages over long distances. The flood destroyed old camps, but no human life was lost. Kale realized, as did the aliens observing from afar, that humans had learned to act as one mind. Alien observers were stunned. Charts and simulations failed to predict human coordination. One analyst said, "They act with collective intuition." Another whispered, "It cannot be predicted." The council leader remained silent, its glowing eyes fixed on Earth. "They are no longer primitive," it said finally. "They have become adaptive in ways that exceed our understanding." This acknowledgement of human ingenuity filled the council chambers with unease. Species that had once been dismissed as insignificant were now a source of fear and uncertainty. Kale traveled between tribes to share observations, though he no longer needed to instruct. Humans had begun teaching each other independently. They experimented with tools and techniques, improving weapons, shelters, and fire management. They designed simple machines from stone and wood, testing each component until it functioned better than before. Every failure became a lesson, every success a model for others. Kale watched a young girl show her peers how to construct a pulley system to lift heavy objects, a method he had never imagined. The skill he had learned from the aliens had spread beyond him, growing in ways that were organic, unpredictable, and unstoppable. Humans began to understand not only their own world but patterns in nature. They tracked seasons, weather cycles, animal movements, and plant growth. They predicted floods, located prey, and found new sources of food. Observation became their guide. Planning became their strength. They did not need to conquer the world, they only needed to understand it. Kale realized that this mindset was the true danger to the galaxy. Humans did not need alien technology to become formidable. They only needed their minds, sharpened by curiosity and shared knowledge. The first real contact with the broader galaxy happened subtly. Alien probes approached settlements, scanning and observing. Humans noticed, though they did not understand what they were seeing. They reacted cautiously, studying the probe's behavior, patterns, and weaknesses. Then they adapted. They created decoys, redirected sensors, and used camouflage. The aliens had not anticipated such cleverness. What was meant to be simple observation became a test humans passed with ingenuity and caution. Kale watched these interactions with interest. Humans were learning faster than the aliens could comprehend. Every probe that approached Earth left with its data corrupted or incomplete, yet no human had fired a weapon. Within the tribes, humans began exchanging knowledge across distances. Messenger systems developed using smoke, sound, and simple codes. Messages traveled faster than any human body could carry them, creating a network of information that connected settlements. When one tribe discovered a better method of toolmaking, building, or hunting, the news spread quickly. Adaptation became collective. Kale realized that the galaxy had never seen learning on this scale. A single mind could innovate, but a connected network of minds could multiply the effect exponentially. Humans were no longer isolated. They were a growing force. Alien leaders began to whisper of the human problem. In simulation after simulation, humans behaved in ways that could not be predicted. Their learning was too rapid, their cooperation too strong. Force could not slow them, observation could not fully anticipate them, and influence could not control them. The Council recognized that humans were evolving intellectually far faster than physically. Adaptation without aggression made them more dangerous than any armed fleet. The leader's voice, usually calm and measured, trembled slightly. "We created a species that cannot be contained," it admitted. Kale understood more than most humans. He saw that humans were changing the very structure of their society without knowing it. Leadership shifted from authority to merit, from fear to respect. Ideas mattered more than strength. Collaboration mattered more than dominance. They were learning to think collectively. Individual limitations were replaced by shared wisdom. Mistakes no longer destroyed progress. They became lessons to improve the future. Kale realized that this transformation would outlast him. Humans had become self-sustaining in their evolution of thought. The first human-made tools that impressed the aliens arrived gradually. Simple pulleys, traps, shelters, and fire management techniques evolved into more complex mechanisms. Humans used these tools not only to survive but to explore their surroundings more efficiently. They experimented, tested, and improved. Knowledge spread horizontally across tribes. Kale noted a moment when a tribe several days' travel away independently created a similar improvement to a tool he had designed weeks earlier. Humans were learning from the world, from each other, and from failure. The pace of development stunned alien observers. Kale's final realization came one evening as he watched children play with a newly designed tool. They had no idea he had taught the first concept that sparked this revolution. Yet here it was, alive and growing beyond him. He saw the spark of ingenuity in their eyes, the confidence to experiment, the willingness to learn from mistakes. He knew then that humans would continue to evolve, to challenge, and to rise, with or without him. Above, alien fleets and observation posts could only watch, powerless to slow the tide. Humanity was no longer a species to mock. It was a force that would shape the galaxy in ways no one could yet imagine. Kale, now a legend among humans, walked back to the river where he had once studied patterns in water and fire. He touched the flowing current and smiled, thinking of the countless minds learning, adapting, and creating. He did not need recognition or command. His role was complete. Humans had become greater than any expectation, faster and wiser than the galaxy had ever imagined. The caveman who had learned one skill had sparked a transformation that would echo across stars. Humans had grown in ways the galaxy could not yet fully measure. They did not build vast fleets or weapons to conquer. Instead, they built understanding. Kale observed as tribes collaborated over distances, sharing methods, improving tools, and planning for challenges that had not yet arrived. Knowledge moved faster than bodies, faster than storms, faster than predators. Humans were creating a network of minds that could solve problems before they happened, adapt instantly, and learn collectively. Kale realized that power had shifted. It was no longer about strength or numbers. It was about intellect, observation, and the ability to act together without command. The aliens above watched nervously. They had expected humans to struggle or falter, to repeat mistakes endlessly. Instead, humans improved relentlessly. Every error became a lesson, every lesson a new step forward. When alien probes approached, humans did not attack blindly. They observed, experimented, and adapted. One probe became a decoy to draw attention, another was hidden, and when a third failed to retreat as expected, humans used terrain and timing to force it away without violence. Alien analysts flagged it as unpredictable adaptive behavior. It was more than survival. It was strategy born from thought. Kale encouraged humans to continue planning, not for revenge but for preparedness. He emphasized observation, experimentation, and collaboration. The young ones learned quickly. They shared discoveries openly. Mistakes were analyzed, improved, and remembered. Knowledge became the strongest tool. Humans began to build shelters, gather resources, and navigate the land with foresight rather than reaction. They created rudimentary codes and signals to communicate over distances, allowing coordination across valleys and rivers. Small successes multiplied quickly, and the pace of adaptation astonished the aliens. The council debated intervention again. Some factions called for restraint, others for preemptive strikes. The leader reminded them that humans were adaptive, resilient, and unpredictable. Force would only accelerate their development. The aliens realized that humanity's strength lay in their choice. They could be merciful, cautious, and cooperative, or they could fight blindly. That choice, combined with intelligence and shared learning, made them more dangerous than any weapon the council could deploy. Fear had entered every chamber, and it had roots. Humans did not seek confrontation, yet they prepared for possibility. They built better shelters in flood-prone valleys, reinforced structures against storms, and stored food efficiently. They observed patterns in animal migrations, weather, and rivers. Each observation created opportunity. A failed trap taught them new ways to catch prey. A lost hunt taught planning and patience. Each lesson was shared. No knowledge remained isolated. The tribe became a network of learning and innovation. Kale watched as humans applied these lessons to problem after problem. Adaptation was no longer accidental. It was intentional. Communication evolved beyond spoken words. Humans developed signals with fire, stone, and water. They devised patterns to transmit warnings, coordinate hunts, and share discoveries. Even children learned to use these codes instinctively. Kale observed a young girl correct an elder's message pattern, improving its clarity. Humans now had a system of indirect teaching that spanned distances. Alien observers noted that humans were creating an information network long before they could reach the stars. This realization caused unease in the council. Humans had not attacked, yet their influence spread invisibly and relentlessly. Kale realized that humans were also developing empathy and cooperation as tools of survival. Individuals looked after each other. Weak or injured members were supported. Knowledge was shared freely. Decisions were made for the benefit of the group. This balance of intellect and emotion created resilience the aliens could not simulate. Adaptive intelligence alone was not enough. Emotional intelligence made humans unpredictable, capable of unity without coercion. The council recognized this too late. Humans began to explore beyond their immediate surroundings. Kale guided them subtly, showing ways to test ideas safely. They constructed bridges, measured river currents, and experimented with stone and wood to create stronger tools. Each small innovation spread through networks of tribes. Observation became second nature. When a threat appeared, humans reacted with strategy, not violence. When resources dwindled, they found solutions without panic. The galaxy above noticed this remarkable pattern. Humans were using foresight, collaboration, and adaptation simultaneously. The aliens debated containment. Preemptive strikes risked provoking humans and accelerating their development. Observation alone was proving insufficient. Humans anticipated patterns, adapted to threats, and created solutions that the aliens could not predict. The Council realized that control was impossible without direct conflict. Yet conflict carried risk. Humans were not predictable opponents. Their choices mattered. They could choose mercy, aggression, or ingenuity in each moment. That choice was their real strength. Kale watched as humans began to teach others deliberately. Not every lesson came from him. Humans experimented independently and shared results. Knowledge became communal. Mistakes were celebrated as steps toward understanding. Successes were documented with markings and symbols that even distant tribes could read. The pace of learning accelerated. The alien observers were forced to acknowledge that humanity's progress was exponential, not linear. Every challenge, natural or alien, became an opportunity to evolve. One day, humans encountered remnants of an alien probe that had fallen to the ground. They studied it carefully, not to destroy, but to understand. They tried different angles, tested materials, and experimented with construction techniques. Pieces were adapted into new tools. No single human understood the full complexity, yet the group solved problems collectively. Kale smiled. Humans had learned to reverse engineer without guidance, turning alien technology into lessons for their survival and advancement. The council leader admitted the truth. Humans were no longer a primitive species. They were thoughtful, adaptive, and capable of shaping their own destiny. Their growth could not be contained by force or observation. The aliens had underestimated the combination of intellect, collaboration, and choice. Humans had discovered that they could influence outcomes by acting together, not by overpowering. Kale realized this was the essence of humanity's power. They could choose how to act, and that choice multiplied with learning and shared knowledge. By the river, Kale watched young humans experiment with stone and wood. They built structures, tested mechanisms, and communicated their findings. Mistakes were expected, celebrated, and shared. The group innovated as a collective mind. Knowledge moved faster than any individual could hold. Kale understood that humans had surpassed dependence on him. They had become self-sustaining learners, explorers of both their world and themselves. The galaxy might fear them, but humans did not fear the unknown. They understood it, adapted to it, and used it to grow. Kale's heart felt a quiet contentment. He had sparked the transformation, but it was no longer about him. The galaxy began to change quietly, imperceptibly at first, as humans continued to grow in skill and understanding. Tribes that once struggled to survive were now organized networks of thinkers, learners, and innovators. Kale watched with a calm intensity as humans applied the skill he had learned from the aliens to every aspect of life. Observation, adaptation, and collaboration had become their natural way of being. No longer did humans act on impulse alone. They calculated, experimented, and shared knowledge across distances. Every action, even mistakes, became an opportunity to improve. The alien observers recorded these changes in shock and awe. Humans were evolving intellectually faster than the Council had anticipated, and the consequences were beginning to ripple across the galaxy. The Council convened a special session to address the human problem. Members argued about containment, observation, and intervention, but all predictions failed. Humans had learned to cooperate, to plan, and to adapt beyond the scope of alien modeling. One council member said, "Force will not stop them. Observation alone cannot predict them." Another replied, "They are evolving socially, emotionally, and intellectually simultaneously. Nothing in our archives prepares us for this." The leader nodded silently, recognizing the truth. Humanity had become a species whose growth could not be constrained by traditional methods. Their adaptability, intelligence, and ability to share knowledge made them unpredictable, powerful, and uncontainable. On Earth, humans were unaware of the fear they had caused across the stars. They were too focused on learning and improving. Kale observed as they built better shelters, designed more effective tools, and coordinated hunts with remarkable precision. Children learned by watching and imitating, absorbing lessons faster than adults anticipated. Knowledge became communal, moving seamlessly from mind to mind. When a design failed, it was improved collectively. When a plan succeeded, it was shared widely. Humans were no longer isolated individuals. They were a network species, constantly evolving through cooperation and experience. Humans began to extend their reach beyond immediate survival. They tracked seasonal changes, animal behavior, and natural hazards, using these observations to plan for future challenges. They developed codes and signals to communicate across distances, sharing warnings, discoveries, and strategies. Kale watched as humans organized themselves into systems that could respond to threats before they occurred. The galaxy's observers were baffled. Humans had created a predictive network without technology, without machines, without instruction. They had done it with their minds, their cooperation, and the skill Kale had learned long ago. Alien analysts attempted to model human behavior, but their predictions repeatedly failed. Humans did not act in predictable patterns. They combined emotion with logic, intuition with observation, and creativity with caution. One analyst whispered, "They are inconsistent." Another corrected, "No, they are context-based." Humans did not merely react, they anticipated. They adapted. They improved. The Council began to understand that the humans' real strength was choice. Their ability to decide how to act, combined with the skill to learn collectively, made them unstoppable in ways the aliens could not measure or control. Kale observed a turning point when humans began to formalize knowledge. Marks on stone, symbols, and primitive diagrams spread across tribes. Techniques for hunting, building, and survival were recorded and shared. Knowledge was no longer confined to memory. Mistakes were documented, lessons preserved. Every generation inherited a growing pool of understanding. Even young children contributed, testing ideas, failing, and improving upon them. Kale realized that humans had created an information network that transcended individuals. Their minds were connected through experience, experimentation, and shared learning. The first direct interaction with alien technology occurred when a probe crashed near a human settlement. The humans approached it cautiously, curious rather than fearful. They disassembled it, studied its parts, and experimented with its mechanisms. They did not fully understand the technology, but they learned from it. They integrated what they could into tools and strategies, improving their ability to manipulate their environment. Kale watched as humans collectively solved problems that no single mind could master. The aliens recorded this moment with alarm. Humans were reverse engineering without instruction, turning foreign technology into lessons for survival and progress. The Council debated containment strategies once more. Preemptive strikes risked provoking rapid adaptation. Observation alone proved insufficient. Humans had learned to anticipate, improvise, and cooperate in ways that no alien species had ever managed. They were not predictable, and the tools of control, the threats, manipulations, and calculations, were ineffective. The Council recognized a new reality. Humans would continue to evolve intellectually and socially, regardless of external pressure. They could not be contained, and any attempt to do so would only accelerate their growth. Kale noticed another remarkable change among humans. They were developing empathy and cooperation not as a social requirement, but as a survival strategy. Individuals cared for each other. Knowledge was shared freely. Decisions were made for the benefit of the group rather than the individual. Mistakes became communal lessons. Successes were celebrated collectively. Emotional intelligence had become intertwined with cognitive skill, creating resilience the aliens could neither predict nor replicate. Humans were learning to act as one, not through command, but through shared understanding and choice. As humans' influence spread, the galaxy itself began to respond. Alien species that had once ignored Earth now monitored it closely. Observation stations multiplied, yet humans adapted to these intrusions. They disguised camps, rerouted travel paths, and communicated in new ways. Each interaction became a lesson in adaptation. Humans were learning not only from their environment but also from their observers. Kale saw that humans had taken the skill he learned from aliens and amplified it across the entire species. They were thinking ahead, not just surviving, and the ripple effects were being felt across the stars. Kale walked through his tribe one evening, observing children and adults alike as they experimented with tools and techniques. They built, tested, failed, and improved. Knowledge moved freely, improving continuously. Humans had become self-sustaining learners. Kale realized that he was no longer essential for their growth. The skill had spread, evolved, and integrated into the species itself. The galaxy may have feared humans, but the humans themselves were unaware of the fear they had inspired. They only knew how to learn, adapt, and grow. The Council finally admitted the truth. Humans had become a force that could not be contained or predicted. Their growth, intelligence, and adaptability had reshaped the galaxy's understanding of evolution and survival. Kale understood the significance. Humans had turned the simple skill he had learned into a foundation for collective intelligence, innovation, and resilience. Humans had changed the world quietly, yet profoundly. They were no longer just survivors. They had become thinkers, planners, and innovators. Kale observed the tribes as they worked together, sharing knowledge, testing ideas, and improving continuously. Each failure was a lesson, each success a model. Children experimented fearlessly, elders taught cautiously, and every human contributed to the collective growth. Knowledge flowed like a river, connecting minds across valleys, rivers, and forests. What had begun with one skill, learned under alien observation, had multiplied into a species-wide ability that no force could stop. The aliens above could see it but could not understand it fully. Humans were evolving faster than any prediction, faster than any calculation, and far beyond anyone's expectations. The Council monitored Earth with concern. Data streams showed exponential growth in human knowledge and coordination. Humans were learning not only from their environment but also from each other, creating networks of shared understanding that spread across the planet. The leader of the Council spoke quietly. They are no longer primitive. They adapt, they cooperate, and they learn collectively. Force will only make them stronger. Discussions erupted among other members, but all admitted the truth. Humans were unpredictable. They could not be controlled, contained, or easily understood. Every scenario the Council devised failed. Humans were a species unlike any before. On Earth, Kale walked among the people, teaching indirectly, observing closely. Humans experimented with tools, tested shelters, and explored patterns in nature. They tracked the movements of animals, predicted weather, and optimized resources. The simplest observations became complex strategies. Children learned quickly, adapting and improving methods without instruction. Knowledge was no longer limited to memory or experience. It had become a shared and expanding network. Kale realized that the skill he had received from the aliens had evolved into a foundation for collective intelligence. The species no longer relied on a single mind to grow. They had become self-sustaining. Alien observers were frustrated. Their machines calculated and predicted endlessly, but humans did not follow linear patterns. They combined logic with intuition, emotion with observation. They improvised, collaborated, and adapted constantly. One analyst whispered, "They are unpredictable." Another added, "They are learning faster than we can measure." The Council began to understand that humans' power lay not in strength, speed, or technology, but in the ability to observe, think, and act collectively. Their minds were connected by shared experience and shared problem-solving. The galaxy had never faced a species like this. Humans began to anticipate threats before they arrived. When floods came, they had already moved food and people to safety. When predators approached, they coordinated distraction and defense. When strange alien objects fell into their world, they experimented and learned from them, integrating lessons into tools and strategies. Every action, deliberate or accidental, became a building block for collective progress. Kale noticed that humans were beginning to think several steps ahead, planning not just for survival but for growth and improvement. They were no longer reactive. They were proactive. The first true test of human strategy occurred when multiple alien probes entered human territories simultaneously. Humans observed and adapted. They created decoys, misdirected sensors, and coordinated movements across settlements without centralized command. Each tribe shared lessons in real time using simple signals and codes. The probes could not anticipate human behavior, and many were forced to retreat damaged. Kale watched the humans celebrate not through triumph over the aliens, but through the success of coordination and learning. They had discovered that thinking together, sharing knowledge, and adapting collectively was more powerful than brute force. The Council convened urgently. Force was considered, but it was clear that humans would adapt faster than any military campaign could contain them. Observation alone was insufficient. Humans were learning from the attempts to monitor them. Attempts at control accelerated their development. The leader of the Council admitted, "They are learning from everything. Every threat, every observation, every mistake strengthens them. There is no way to stop their progress without risk." Fear had replaced complacency. A species once dismissed as primitive was now considered a threat because of its intellect, adaptability, and choice. On Earth, humans continued to innovate. Tools became more efficient, shelters more secure, and communication more sophisticated. They documented lessons with marks and symbols that could be understood by distant tribes. Experimentation became systematic. When one approach failed, another succeeded. Knowledge moved horizontally across groups, multiplying the rate of learning. Even mistakes became shared lessons. Kale saw the evolution of human intelligence as unstoppable. The species was no longer dependent on a single mind, teacher, or leader. They had created a self-sustaining system of growth and adaptation. Empathy and cooperation had become as vital as intellect. Humans looked after each other, shared knowledge freely, and considered the welfare of the group. Emotional intelligence intertwined with observation and reasoning, creating resilience that aliens could neither simulate nor predict. Humans did not dominate through fear or aggression. They dominated through collective understanding and collaboration. Kale realized that this combination of learning, observation, and shared choice was the true strength of humanity. It could not be measured by traditional metrics of power, yet it made humans unstoppable. Humans began to explore ideas beyond immediate survival. They observed the stars, tracked cycles, and experimented with materials. Knowledge spread across generations, improved with each iteration, and adapted to new challenges. Kale saw that humans had internalized the skill he had learned from the aliens and expanded it exponentially. They were learning faster than any alien technology could measure. Their minds, connected by experience, experimentation, and choice, had become a collective engine of innovation. The galaxy could watch, but it could not intervene effectively. Kale, older now and revered among humans, walked along the river where he had first studied patterns in water and fire. Children played with simple tools, experimenting, failing, and improving. The process of learning was continuous, and humans thrived in it. They were no longer dependent on Kale or any single individual. The skill had become part of the species itself. Above, the council could only watch in growing unease. The species they had once mocked as primitive had become a self-sustaining force of intelligence, cooperation, and innovation. Humanity had learned to think, adapt, and act collectively, and the galaxy would never underestimate them again. The final realization settled in Kale's mind. One skill had changed everything. Humans had transformed from a fragile, primitive species into a networked force capable of shaping their own destiny. They did not need weapons or fleets to command respect. They only needed the ability to observe, learn, and act together.